Hey guys, Tim here with the Long-Haired Gardener, and today I am visiting Longwood Gardens, where I'm gonna finally get to see the new edition called Longwood Reimagined. So I thought I would take you guys along today to check out this new edition and see what they have here for the winter time. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so here we are entering the main entrance, and we are greeted with the classic, I'm going to call them winter flowers of amaryllis, and there were also some cyclamen there. And up in the ceiling, there are some beautiful spheres. It is so wonderful to come in here, especially when it's cold outside. And you're basically entering what feels like spring and summer, with all of these beautiful plants in bloom and, of course, the warm temperatures. There are more amaryllis down there, and I am taking a look at this fern. The leaves looked a little bit unusual to me. They did have a couple of these plants trained in like tree form. I can't remember the name of them right now. But here is another example of, this is a poinsettia trained into a tree form. And that's such a beautiful way to display the plants and bring in some height. I always enjoy walking through this particular section because it is a lot of houseplants. They do tend to change the ones right near the path more frequently because I think they kind of get trampled on. But they do change other plants too with the seasons. Winter time, so there are some poinsettias in there. Apparently they just changed or transitioned over from Christmas to like their winter display. So there are a few, I guess, leftover Christmassy winter plants. But they are moving on to their next season. I did see a lot of bromeliads on this trip, and I am quite fond of bromeliads. I am loving them more and more. So I don't know if it's because they just happen to have more bromeliads, or if that's just where my focus seemed to land because I'm just more interested in them. Whenever you are walking around and there are lilies nearby, you can always smell them, or at least I can always smell them before I actually see them. So walking down this path, I knew there were lilies coming up somewhere. Again, more bromeliads down below. I see some crotons. Anthurium, I believe. This is just, seeing all of this in the wintertime is just getting me so excited for working on my garden. It is basically that time of year now where I need to start planning what I want my garden to look like for the summertime. There are a few orchids sprinkled throughout because it is wintertime. They do, of course, have greenhouses, and they, force plants to bloom at times when, they're not normally blooming. But I'd say a predominant plant that you're going to keep seeing repeated are, of course, the poinsettias, the orchids seem to, right now we're looking at some spheres up on the ceiling, and those all have orchids. Those seem to always be in bloom all year round, no matter when you come to visit. They always have the orchids. And of course, winter amaryllis. Those aren't the only flowers, of course, as you're looking around here. But I think those three are probably repeated frequently as we're walking around here. I really don't remember what those are called, but I was definitely in love with the way those white flowers looked. Again, trained into tree form. More poinsettias, maybe not quite as tall, but those were also trees. Is another reoccurring theme. They had a lot of plants that were trained into these tree forms, which are nice to see because the average person probably doesn't have those in their garden or house. They do take a pretty good amount of commitment to train them into those shapes. This was also a really good time to come because there was nobody there. So I usually make a pretty good effort to try to keep as many people out of the shots as possible. But on this particular day, it was very empty. So it makes it easier, especially when filming, to walk around and be able to kind of just film without bumping into people. So this building that we're in right now, this is completely new. I have never been in this one. So this was part of their Longwood Reimagined area. You can see there is like water just kind of misting and dripping all over the place in there. This whole room was just covered in bromeliads. And like I said previously, I really love them. So I was very excited to find this room. They also have, in addition to the bromeliads, other plants that typically grow on trees. I think we'll see some more examples of those here in just a minute as we go around the corner. But yeah, I was in love with the sheer size and variety of the bromeliads that they had. It's a little hard to tell, but those big ones on the ground there, they were huge, several feet across. So up there on those poles, you can see some of the other plants that typically grow in trees. This is a very humid room, which is what these plants like. So that makes sense. Also, this was my other really favorite bromeliad. They just looked very fun to me. Those ones on the very bottom, they kind of had like an alien, like the movie Alien, form to them, like there was a creature inside. But I was very happy with this new room, this new addition that they've added. And after we exit this room, I didn't really see a sign, but I want to say this is maybe the aeroid room. Definitely all of these plants are plants that grow on trees. So here we are entering the new addition. This is the main building that we've been waiting for a while now, a couple years. My friend Ellen and I have been coming, and we have been waiting for this new building. It's always been being worked on in the distance, and we have finally been able to come inside. beautiful espalier, citrus trees, and there are some succulent towers in here. The room is, it's different than the rest of Longwood Gardens, or maybe the previous rooms that we were in. That it is, I feel like you can almost stand anywhere in this room and kind of see the whole space all at once. It's, I want to say maybe flat. Some of the other, or the older spaces, the plants, probably because they're more mature, there's different levels. This new area, it's kind of all one level, with the exception of the spheres that you see there on the ceiling. But scanning right now, you can see again, like the whole, it's like you're viewing the whole room all at once. So that is a difference compared to maybe the older edition. I was very excited to see a clivia. They had many clivias. I have one myself, first time growing it, so I am hoping that my clivia also blooms. It is doing well, but it was exciting to see that they had a whole bunch in their new greenhouse. This greenhouse had a lot of water in it. So as you can see there, as we're looking around, there's like bridges, and it's kind of like surrounded by water. And if you can see there in the bottom middle of the screen, there's like a channel of water, and it continues, or it gives the illusion that it continues outside. So this space is, I would say, pretty water focused. I really enjoyed this aloe plant in that huge pot. They did have quite a few specimens in pots, kind of succulent or more dry loving plants, which is kind of ironic now that I'm thinking about it, because they are surrounded by so much water. But the pots look fantastic. I'm glad that they had them sitting around. There are a few trees. There wasn't a lot of height. Like I mentioned before, it's kind of all on one level. And again, this could be just because this is a new space, and maybe not all of the plants or some of the permanent plants have had time to mature. But as we're panning along here across the screen, they are looking, you can tell that they're new, and they're all like similar in maybe size. More water features running down through the middle there, and some more of these pots that were filled with these like succulent agave type plants. The color palette was pretty similar. Again, panning through here, very like silvery, light green colored. Not a ton of foliage or flowers. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just contrast to what we're used to seeing, especially in the original building. Being in this room makes me want to buy and start growing more succulents and cactus. there's just so many different, and these aren't all, of course, succulents and cactus, but I've just seen so many beautiful ones. I've always been a little intimidated because I tend to be an overwaterer, but I really think I need to branch out and maybe try some of these plants because look how beautiful they are. This was a type of bird of paradise, and I was really surprised by the tall, spiky leaves or foliage because I'm used to seeing, the traditional wide leafed bird of paradise. We do finally have some color here. And these were, I'm not sure if it's coming across on the camera or not, but these were the bluest flowers I've seen in a long time. And we've made it to the end here. I think we might be, we transitioned out of the new building and then back into the older portion. This is the area that always, no matter when you go, will always have orchids inside. I usually kind of skip over the orchids, but I did try to film a little bit more this time. I don't know why orchids are, of course, beautiful, but a plant that intimidates me. I'm usually willing to try almost any plant, but for some reason I never really have ventured into orchids. They just seem very particular, and I'm afraid I'm going to kill them. But I guess I could try one of those grocery store varieties. Trader Joe's has orchids sometimes, and they are reasonably priced. Maybe I could give them a go. Let me know if anybody else grows orchids and has any, success. Maybe some words to calm my fears. And now we are entering the desert silver room. I always enjoy coming in here. It's a similar color palette actually to the new edition, very silvery. But this room is always very calming and has a lot of really nice succulents. Some of these are quite old. You can tell by the size. I mean, look at that string of pearls up there. It's so huge. And I love that these are blooming. This is probably one of my favorite plants in this room. Even though I know these are probably sharp, I always need to touch the tip just to make sure, and yes, they are sharp. I feel like a little kid. I know it's something I shouldn't do. I know it's going to hurt, but I have to do it anyway. More cactus. I'm excited to return in the springtime. You could spend, and we usually do spend several hours in these greenhouses, But once spring and summer come around, you can expect to double the amount of time that you spend here because there's just so many plants outside. More of those spheres up in the ceilings. Absolutely love those. It's probably one of my favorite things to look at when coming to Longwood Gardens are those spheres of plants that are suspended from the ceilings. There's some more of those orchids. Very springtime colors up there with that soft yellow and like pinkish purple. Really loved the colors and the foliage here. And again, if you just kind of notice, it was a very peaceful and quiet day. Not a lot of people walking around. If you go during the Christmas season, it is absolutely crowded. You are for sure going to be bumping into people the whole time. Probably doesn't come across on through the camera, but these plants are absolutely just huge. Feels like we're walking through a jungle, and the scale is just massive. Speaking of massive, I'm spinning around in that fern. It's a rabbit's foot fern that's suspended from the ceiling there. Is so big. So we're back in the old portion of the greenhouse area, and you should note how the space is used differently than the new section. Definitely a lot more layers in the old section, which I kind of like a little bit more. Feel like the space is used top to bottom. You know, every space is kind of filled in, and I really like that. Another humongous bromeliad. And I think coming up somewhere, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a Christmas cactus. Yeah, sphere. Alright guys, that was everything. I hope you enjoyed this tour at Longwood Gardens. Alright guys, that was everything. I hope you enjoyed this tour at Longwood Gardens and got to see some plants because it's winter and, well, I think we're all ready for spring. So it's always nice to go somewhere like this and see all of the beautiful plants. I'm standing out in front of Longwood Gardens right now, and there's a beautiful espalier right here behind me. But yeah, I hope you had a good tour with me, and I will see you on the next video. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Bye.